Hello, everyone, and welcome to Write Something Weird. I'm Sophie Stern, and I'm here today with my wonderful guest, Bree Moore. Hi, Bree.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is so
Thanks for
fun.
being here. I'm really excited that we're going to get to chit chat tonight about all things writing. Can you tell us a little bit about what you write?
Sure, yeah. I really like to write fantasy. I write both epic fantasy and urban fantasy. All of my books have some sort of romance in it. I just think that's super fun. I do write cleaner romance, closed door romance, so for people who like that. And I've been publishing for 10 years and having a blast. It's a childhood dream, so I'm fulfilling that and loving it.
I love that. I love how many of us were really like inspired from the time we were kids. Like, that's going to be me. I'm going to be a writer.
Yeah, I remember it was really the first book that ever made me cry. I read it in fourth grade and it made me want to be a writer. I was like, I want to make people feel things.
And now you do.
Yes.
That's wild. Do you remember which book it was?
Yes, it was a dog called Kitty. So it is a
Okay.
dog book and it is a sad dog book. So trigger
Oh
warning,
goodness.
don't read it unless
Okay.
you're okay with a sad
Be
dog book.
careful with the sadness there. I think for me it was like Nancy Drew and the Boxcar Children. Did you ever
Oh
read those?
yeah, very much. I remember reading a lot of those books and we have some in our personal library because they're so good.
Oh yeah, I love them. And then when I had kids, they also were able to enjoy those. So I think that's one of the nice things about being a writer is when you write something that can kind of be enjoyed across different generations.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's super fun. I'm getting to the point now. I do write for more adult audience, mostly because of the ages of my characters and like what they experience.
Yeah.
But I'm getting to a point where some of my older kids are starting to get old enough to read some of my books, and it's actually kind of a weird mix of emotions because I'm excited for them to read them, but I'm also nervous for them to read them and then be able to like know what their mom writes and how well I write. I guess
Yeah.
I'm like kind of got this almost stage fright about like giving my children my books for the first time. My oldest, I actually mentioned to him, "Hey, you're old enough to start reading some of these." And he was like, "Mom, I don't think those are books for me." Like he just didn't, he was not interested. I was like, I feel rejected, but
Oh
also I'm okay with
no.
that.
Well, I think it's really interesting because being an author, like, there's such a difference between you as the author and then you as the parent. Because my kids are the same way. Like, to them, like, I'm their mom. And so they're like, okay, you're a writer. Like, that's fine. Good for you. Whereas I feel like a lot of times when you tell someone else, you're like, hey, I wrote a book. They're like, that's amazing. And your kids are like, cool. When's dinner?
For them, it's normal. It's that
Yeah.
weird thing that mom does every day at this time when I can't
Mhm.
access her. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's, and I don't think they really equate me in their heads with like the books they read on the shelves or their favorite
Hmm.
author or their favorite series. It's just like mom writes books, but I don't know that they quite fully, and it might not be till they're in the age bracket of really being interested in what I do, right? That
Yeah.
maybe they'll be like, wow, mom, you're actually cool.
Wait, that's sweet. You are cool.
Right.
So, so do you block time at the same time every day? Is that how you get your writing done?
Right now, I do, for the most part. I've never been a super consistent writer. It's a pretty hit and miss. As a stay-at-home parent, you kind of are a little bit ruled by how much bandwidth you have for creativity. And have spent a lot of years. I have seven kids. I did not include that in my introduction, but I have seven kids and I homeschool them. And I've been a lot of babies and a lot of toddlers and staying up at night. So if my energy level for the day is just not there, I have to be flexible with that. But I have a schedule now where I get a couple of hours every morning. My husband works like evenings, so he's here in the morning, so I can get some time in the morning. And because that's kind of the only time I get, I just like make myself sit down and do something, even if it's just marketing or fiddling around with a manuscript, not maybe getting a lot of words, but I'm like, this is the time I get. And I may or may not be able to squeeze minutes out of time later in my day because I have so many demands on me from my kids and taking care of them. So
Yeah.
it's kind of that I learned when they were babies, it's like take advantage of that time that you have and
Mhm.
kind of learn the skill of making yourself be creative, even if you don't feel like it. And over time, that develops into a habit, and your brain gets used to the signals that you send it of I'm sitting at my desk, this is the time I have.
Mhm.
And so you kind of learn to work with that even under less than ideal conditions, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really interesting that you brought up like creativity as a habit. And I know like for me, we have really similar backgrounds, by the way. I'm the oldest of nine kids, and I was also
Okay.
homeschooled, and my
Uh-huh.
kids were homeschooled. So that's really, we have a lot in common,
That
which
is
I
great.
love. Because as you're talking, I'm like, yep, yep, this is all, it's all true. Everything you said. But I love the idea of developing creative feelings as a habit. So how did you start that? Was it like the first time you sat down, you were like, maybe I'll write if I can get words out? Or were you just like, this is my moment, I have to do it now or never?
I'm a really motivated, self-motivated personality. If you're familiar with the Gallup strengths at all,
Mhm.
one of my top five is achiever, and
Okay.
so I don't tend to have a difficult time with the motivation to write. I usually want to write all the time,
Yeah.
maybe to a point of excess, where I just always want to be focused on this thing that brings me a deep sense of accomplishment. But I definitely have days where I'm super tired or I am maybe feeling stressed about something else in another area of my life. And that just bleeds into my ability to feel like I can be creative. And so I
Mhm.
find that I have to find this balance between these two aspects of myself. The one that's like, I am very motivated and I can do hard things. And so I'm going to sit down and there's a saying, it's button chair, hands on keyboard. Make sure I say
Okay.
that right. And so where you literally just, okay, I'm going to set a timer and for that amount of time, and it's usually a short amount of time, 5 minutes,
Mhm.
10 minutes, 15 minutes, I'm going to just put my hands on the keys and see what comes out, even if it's garbage. And you literally
Yeah.
let yourself vomit onto the page and whatever. And so, you might call that a sprint. And, sometimes that's all you have. You just squeeze that few minutes out and then you're like, okay, I'm done. Other times it is about being gentle with myself and realizing, okay, I was up with a fevery baby. I am stressed about like our finances or whatever. And it's raining today and I just don't have it in me to do the creative thing. And
Yeah.
so having the empathy for yourself of I can do it again tomorrow and I can begin again if I have a really like strict goal or deadline I've set for myself,
Mhm.
understanding that I am fully in control of if like moving that
Yeah.
marker and that if I need to bump it back by a day or a week, I've really learned over the past 10 years that isn't the end of the world. And there are very few and rare instances where moving your deadline by even a month or more would actually cause something catastrophic to happen. So I've
Yeah.
kind of become a lot more relaxed about I need a break today. I slept in today.
Yeah.
Um, and then realizing that when I'm more recharged, then the next time I have a block of time, I'm going to be able to get thousands of words because I was gentle with myself and I rested and I didn't force it. So I know that sounds really maybe contradictory, but it's all these you're a multifaceted being and you can't just say I'm always going to write. Maybe some people can 1,000 words a day no matter what and not take into account your humanness. So I think
Yeah.
that's super important. We just need to do a little bit more of that and be kinder on ourselves because I think more people are doing better than they think they are
Yeah.
and we can be a little less like productive all the time and trying to meet these goals constantly. It's like,
Yeah. No, I don't think it's contradictory at all. I think, especially writers, we tend to be a very intense bunch. And I think that we tend to be very hard on ourselves. And I'm not sure if it's like being a writer like shapes our personality or if we have this personality, so we must be writers. But a lot of us do have that. It's always easier to be kinder to others than to ourselves. And I think you're totally right. Having been in the writer space for so long, I've seen so many writers get completely burnt out, and I'm sure you have too.
absolutely. And I think a lot of it actually comes from this is no shade to male writers at all, but the fact that it was such a male industry at the beginning,
Mhm.
and they have a totally different way of approaching work than most
Mhm.
female people do. And so it's like, really consider what works for you and don't hold on to these maybe somewhat toxic ideals that come from a bygone era of this is the only way to be productive, is to
Yeah.
do it every day and do it within these hours and to fit it into this box. It can look however it needs to look, and it can be also really boiling down to your personality as well, not
Yeah.
just this isn't just like a masculine feminine energy thing. It's also a okay, maybe writer A is a really motivated, self-motivated person. Maybe writer B needs external motivation and a buddy to
Yeah.
write with. And, there's a whole spectrum of us. And you don't, comparing yourself to one person's like success and their method of doing things is only really going to make you very sad. So,
Yeah.
be curious and try new things, lots and lots of new things. Because I would say probably I have tried just about everything out there to as different ways of being productive, and I have learned some things work really well, and other things just aren't sustainable. I need check-ins with my people. I need
Yeah.
someone, a critique partner, somebody that I can just talk about the story with at certain points, because I'll get really in my imposter syndrome at certain checkpoints in the story. Usually about two-thirds of the way through is a
Yeah.
really bad point for me where I'm like, I'm never finishing this. I'm just in the deep, dark depths. And then I'm like, I really need to just go talk to somebody about this. Whereas there might be someone else who's like, I need no contact with the world and
Yeah.
to just get it done and on the page. And, it's wonderful we have such a variety. So like go find what works for you.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I think you're right. It's really interesting how sometimes we need different things and we need different things at different periods of our life. I tend to be very much like a person who shuts the whole world out and locks myself in a room and gets all the writing done. But I also think that I have moments in a story, and it's funny, exactly where your like challenging part is, because I do too. And I get to this one part of the story, every story, and I'm like, do I really want to finish the story? Do I really want to finish the reel? And so I think it's really important that you brought up the idea of a writing community.
Mhm.
So, can you talk a little bit about what your writing community looks like?
Yeah, I've gone through different phases, especially when I was a younger writer.
Mhm.
I knew I needed community. I was also a first-time mom, and I was right before my first book was going to be published. I was finishing the first book that I'd publish. And um, I went out and decided, I'd been part of writing groups before and that had always kind of fallen through for some reason or another, just not a good fit or people at
Yeah.
different phases of their lives. And so I decided I'm going to make one. And so I reached out just on Facebook and said, hey, friends, anybody who's really serious about publishing, who writes fiction, like, we're going to have in-person meetings and you're going to come to like my house regularly, and so I knew it was going to be local people. And so at that time, it ended up being people I kind of knew from various, college or high school or whatever. And they came and we would meet and read each other's stuff out loud. And it was wonderful. And people kind of came and went, but we had ended up with this core unit of people that stayed we ran a writing group for 10 years. That was just, we became best friends and it was incredible. And then a couple years ago, we kind of fell apart in terms of just, again, people at different phases, and we all just ended up disbanding. And I tried to find new people to kind of replace that. But after being in a group that was so close, it was really hard to start from scratch. So right now, I have one critique partner. Her name is Heather Quass, and she writes fantasy. She's got an amazing published series out. And she's been my best friend since high school. So now we just get on to sprint together in the mornings for about an hour, and we'll talk writing and marketing and different things, and that's just like that's what works. We'll read each other's stuff here and there and kind of just make it work. But I used to do presentations on writing groups back in the day when I had a really strong writing group, and what I'd recommend for people looking for their community is deciding the things that are most important to you and then making sure the other people in your group have those same important things in
Yeah.
common. Because if you're a very, like, you want to be published, you're driven professionally, but you're with a bunch of hobby writers, that is going to be a whole different kind of frustration. If you're with people who are very serious about grammar and getting things exactly right and not as focused on story and character, you're going to have a bunch of frustration there. So be like willing, be it's totally okay to write down what you're
Mhm.
looking for and then go out and find people who are willing to do exactly that. And then meeting in person versus online and all of those various things, just get really clear about it and you'll find your people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think having like the shared goals is definitely really important. And I would also add, we're not limited to just one writing community, which I think is really cool
Mm-mm.
too. Because I definitely have like my writing community of like very heavily published romance authors, and like we hang out together and we have a lot to talk about the marketing, the plotting, the things that only a romance author would need to deal with. And then I have a group of people where we get together and we just write.
Hmm.
And then I have a group where we write poems and one where we write short stories. So you can have all these different circles. But I also love that you mentioned having the consistency of like your one bestie where every morning you start your day off right, you get your writing done, but you also mentioned that you kind of built this community. And I think that's important for writers to know too. Like, if you're on the outside and you're looking into all these communities and you're like, I don't know how to break in, you can always start your own.
Absolutely, you can. And you'll find that people are hungry for it. Like they
Yeah.
really, really want community. And anytime I see someone post about it on like TikTok or something, they are getting literally hundreds of people piling onto their post about,
Yeah.
I need this community. And so yeah, getting clear about it, getting specific about it, and creating it is sometimes your best bet rather than trying to join something established. I think joining something, even if it's just for a short time, can also give you a lot of good ideas for what you do and don't
Yeah.
want. So that's a positive, even if it doesn't end up working out. Like just being willing to kind of trust the process of not, if something not working out isn't necessarily a sign that it will never work out.
Yeah.
So making your community is really valuable. And so like for me, I have ADHD and I didn't get diagnosed till I was an adult. So it's not even something I was aware of until a few years ago. But then a whole lot of things started to make sense, like how having that friend who can check in with me. She literally will wake me up sometimes or like pull me out of bed with her text of like, hey, are we sprinting this morning? And so that's that body doubling component that I just need because sometimes my brain is just, I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to do the thing. The dopamine isn't there. And then my friend hops on and all of a sudden I have plenty of dopamine because my very best friend who also writes with me is going to hold me accountable to that sprint that morning. So there's so many different strategies and people out there. So maybe you do better with one-on-one.
Yeah.
Maybe you do better with a whole group. Maybe you need one group for marketing advice and one group for that writing sprint, daily at a certain
Yeah.
time or whatever.
So, what do you think holds people back from joining or creating or participating in a writing community?
I feel like we could fill a therapist's office with all the reasons. But number one, in that writers just struggle with so much is imposter syndrome and not feeling like you belong, or
Yeah.
maybe like you're just not good enough to be to that caliber. And
Mhm.
I the one reason why the first writing group I had did so well is because we started out at a really similar stage of our careers and our ability. So we were helping each other grow in craft and then also in like our actual ability to be published and get our books out there.
Cool.
And when later on, as we had some members leave and then others try to join, we found that if they were at a much lower level, and I say lower not to be like
Right.
rude or anything, but just literally there's such a discrepancy between the stages that you're in and your writing ability. It gets really hard to feel like you're spending your professional um what's the word? Like growth time constantly kind of babying someone who isn't just there yet and
Mhm.
needs a lot more hand holding and would do better with peers because you kind of ended up, if it's lopsided, you end up in like more of a mentor relationship rather than getting what you need for yourself, which is much more of like a peer level. So
Yeah.
writing groups, I would say, are much more, they're for that peer to peer critique. And so if you find that either you're needing something like more than your group is giving you, or you are needing to find somebody who's just more on your level, don't be afraid to go out and do that, because it really is, it's kind of like marriage where you just have to realize if it's not working, then there is someone else out there for you and a
Yeah.
better fit for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say that imposter syndrome. And then I think we also get caught up in um like it goes back to the community aspect and being willing to create it. Like in order to have community, you have to be community. And
Ooh.
so some people don't always realize that. Like they try to set up a community and then it falls apart. And it's
Mhm.
probably because you maybe weren't quite giving to the others what you were expecting. And so and if you feel like you're always the only one reaching out, then maybe there's also a communication aspect there that needs to be had where you're telling people what you're expecting. I remember with my first writing group setting out, like I had set up a Facebook group for it, and I had put just really clear rules of you show up every week, and if you can't show up, you gotta tell us why, and you gotta be there, consistently, because we'd
Mhm.
have people who were really flaky, and that's just not, they're not contributing, right?
Yeah.
So you got to be the community that you want and be really clear about it. I don't think I can say enough of how, some people are going to think you're rude or whatever, but like forget them, because you need to tell people what you want and what you're expecting.
Absolutely. And I think communication really is key as far as it's like parenting. You have to set the expectation and let other people know what it is that you anticipate this is going to be and what it's going to look like. And I think when you do have that clear communication, and it kind of gives people the opportunity to say, I'm okay with that. Like, I want to be a part of this community and I can put in the work. Or you have people who go, you know what? It's not for me. And that's okay too.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think we get sometimes a little bit too much in our feels about it and make it way more dramatic than it needs to be, because it really can
Yeah.
just be as clear as I want this, I don't want that. Okay,
Mhm.
like have a good life and find your other writing buddy. Like it can be. We went through a lot of drama and different things. And so I got a lot of experience with just trying to work as a team and figure out what was going to be right for the group as well as for
Mhm.
the individuals. And all of the times that there was unnecessary drama is because somebody had chosen not to communicate in some way or
Mhm.
another. And so it all comes down to speaking up and being just a kind and respectful human being. So,
Yeah. And I think that's really good advice for many different situations in life, for sure.
absolutely.
So, what advice would you give to new writers who are just kind of getting into the space of, I want to be productive, I want to have good habits? What's the starting point?
For a new writer, I'm going to say that it is important to get some kind of rhythm down, whether
Mhm.
that's okay, every Tuesday and Thursday, I have half an hour where my baby is napping, I'm going to write during those times, or if it's something like I'm going to make sure to get 500 words a day squeezed into every little crack of my life.
Mhm.
There's multiple ways of being consistent and showing up, but that all starts with taking yourself seriously. And so, whether or not you're published, if you want to finish anything, you have to take yourself more seriously than anyone else,
Mhm.
because you're the only one who really cares. You might have an incredible spouse. I have an incredible spouse who hypes me up and he's amazing. And whenever I get too grumpy, he's like, "You need to go work on your books because I can tell you're needing that creative time." Maybe you have that person who's just all the time hyping you up, but even they cannot care about it more than you do. And
Yeah.
so if you're brand new and you just feel like it's not happening, then you need to really ask yourself how much you want it and then find a way to make it happen. Like I said, I've been publishing for the past 10 years. I have 24 books out. I have 7 kids. I homeschool them. I don't get that like time where they're at school to write. And so when I say that, like, if I can do it, you can do it, I really seriously mean like you find the time when you really care. and you
Yeah.
find another writer who can babysit your kids and you can babysit her kids and you trade, or you just you find the ways. You stay up until 1 in the morning some nights so that you can get that writing time in, and you take a nap the next day, or don't. It's you have to care and
Yeah.
realize that it's down to you, and you can't outsource the responsibility for your passion. Everybody around you, like, they can participate and help you if you communicate with them,
Hmm.
but it really comes down to you. So, like, for me right now, I have to wake up early before my husband starts he's doing a master's program. So I have this little window of time. And if I sleep into that, then I miss out. And so taking myself seriously, sometimes going to bed instead of staying up, making sure that I have that ability to wake up early enough to take advantage of my time. And then lately I realized it wasn't quite enough and I needed a little more. So I just examined my schedule. Like, I laid it all out. I was like, when do I have this pocket of time? And I realized I usually wait for my daughters to get out of their ballet class for half an hour on Monday evenings. And usually I sit there and scroll on TikTok. And so I was like, okay, that's now writing time. And so I sit on my phone and I write in a Google document on my phone.
Hmm.
And that's when I get that extra time that I needed to draft more. Um, so yeah, it's you gotta look for those little pockets, and you gotta care a lot.
I think that is really great advice and a really great note to end on. Bree, thank you so much for your time tonight. This was really wonderful.
You're welcome. Thank you for chatting with me. I really enjoyed this, and I have a lot of fun talking to other writers. It's one of the best things too. This is community right here,
This is
participating in
community.
things like this. It is.
I love that. All right. Well, Bree, have a wonderful night.
Thank you. You too.